stopped in the French Quarter, got some beignets from Cafe Du Monde, and you guys, they are just so good. I did want more powdered sugar, so I had to put it back in that bag, give it a little shake, shake to cover it more, and voila. Got to work.
I really fell in love with the city. So this is my passion, and hopefully some of that comes out as we do this tour. It's my favorite tour to do. Everybody say hi to our driver, Corey.
Hey, Corey.
Corey's born and raised here in New Orleans, so he's a great person to talk to, like on our break and stuff, about some of the experiences that he's been through living here his whole life. So when I tell you that we're doing a tour, we are doing a tour. We're taking you to a lot of places that maybe even people that have been here before might not have been to. So I'm going to talk a lot about history. And listen, we don't pull any punches. We talk about the dark stuff too. Slavery. We also talk about, for example, we're going to drive through some Hurricane Katrina affected areas. Talk about that. We're still dealing with that 15 years later. Also, wow, the sun is really out. Okay.
Yes.
It came out of nowhere. I'm going to give you some alternatives to Bourbon Street, for example. Now, some of these places that I'm going to talk about are still not open because of COVID, but I'm still going to talk about them because they're iconic places. We will get out at a certain point and do a very short tour of what I think is the most beautiful cemetery in the city. We do burials unlike any other place in the United States, so we have to talk about that. For our break, we're going to stop up in City Park. Has everybody had beignets yet?
No.
Well, if you have or you haven't, you're going to have another opportunity because we're going to a new Cafe Du Monde that just opened up in City Park. For our break, okay? All right, so we always start our tours here in the French Quarter. This is the oldest part of the city. First inhabitants here, a group of Choctaw Indians called the Natchez. First Europeans to arrive are the French. They got here in 1689. They actually completed the colony in 1718. So what does that mean? That means this year we're celebrating our 302nd anniversary. That's old by American standards, okay? Okay, so we are start French. We're Spanish for 42 years. We're French again for 2 years. And then the Louisiana Purchase happens in 1803. All the Americans arrive in 1805. Here's what you need to know about that. That kind of is the history of our city in a nutshell. The French and the Americans absolutely hated each other. So much so that the Americans built their own city on the other side of Canal Street, where we picked up a lot of you guys, okay? Now, it was so bad, guys, that they changed all the street names over there. That's why today, if you're on Bourbon Street and you cross over to Canal, it becomes Carondelet. They changed all the street names. So just keep that in mind as I go through some of the history with you. One more thing before we start. The architecture. Y'all notice the architecture. All the balconies, all the ironwork, that's not French at all. That's actually Spanish Caribbean influence. That's because when the French built this city, they built everything out of beechwood. Very, very flammable. Fires constantly. In 1788, almost the entire French Quarter burned to the ground. So the Spanish rebuilt all those beautiful buildings that y'all see. All right, guys, so look across the street here. This is the iconic Jackson Square, named after that man you see on that statue. That's General Andrew Jackson. But that is not what this always was. Everybody see the white sign by the gate? The first thing the French built here was called that, the Plaza d'Armes. It was Now, those three buildings that you're looking at, folks, they suffered a major amount of fire damage in 1794. This very wealthy man comes from France. His name is Dom Elminester. He bankrolled the rebuilding of those three buildings, and he bought all the land on either side of the square because it had all burned down, right? We only had one child, a daughter, and her name was Michaela, and she's a very important part of our history. Here's what happened to her. She actually married into an even wealthier family, and she became a baroness, the Baroness Cantalba. And what happened was, her father passed away, he left her all that land, and she built the very first apartment buildings in the United States. That's what they still are today, the oldest apartment buildings in America. She was rich, she was powerful, and she was tough, but she was a woman. Notice she's across the street from the original Cafe Du Monde. Everybody see her monograms?
Yeah.
Oh,
Every piece of ironwork has it. Okay, guys, so we're moving past her building, and we're moving 5th anniversary. Isn't that awesome? And then you're going to see really modern ones coming up on your right. Quite modern, very popular. It's actually been in quite a few videos, but that's the most famous one. Here we go. Look on the right here. See these? Aren't these awesome? And then there's more coming up on your left. There's there that says "You already know." Y'all heard of Big Frida?
Yeah.
That's a portrait of Big Frida right there. We'll talk more about her. So over there in the 7th Ward, that is an area that was devastated 15 years ago by Katrina. Still coming back. If you're a young, struggling artist, very affordable rent in that neighborhood still. Also in this neighborhood is a legendary place called St. Roch Market. We're about to see it. It was an African-American owned market from the 40s to just after Katrina. They were so destroyed by Katrina, they really ended up just selling the building. And now St. Roch Market is one of the nicest restaurants, here we go, in the city. Traditional cafeteria style service, but really, really good gourmet food. Another local restaurant on your right, excellent po' boys, very, very popular, is Moro's, right here coming up on the corner.
That's what we were just talking about.
All right, now guys, we're gonna see a quick portrait of one of B-Mike's best known works. We're gonna see it pretty fast here. Well, we gotta pass the light first. Y'all see this blue building? Okay, I used to live in this neighborhood. This guy had a barber shop, a bar, and he did your taxes. Now he's split it into two businesses. He's got a smoke shop, and he still does your taxes. Only in New Orleans, right? And I think he's very entrepreneurial. Something, I don't know why he closed the bar. Maybe just, you think the bar would have been very profitable, but apparently it was not. Maybe he got sick of trying to cut people's hair who were wasted. That's okay. Okay, so here's a brief look at one of B-Mike's well-known portraits. See that? Now we are going to show you this. It's going to be a little difficult to see. This is called the Ninth Ward Stompers. This is a legendary African-American Mardi Gras crew. Now you see, there's some people that have been stranded because there was a huge hurricane in Lake Charles a few weeks ago. That's who these folks are. Look behind the camper here. You see the pompadour hair and the sunglasses? That's Big Frida. Now if you don't know who she is, she's a transgendered rapper and dancer who's often credited with creating the twerk dance. Not Miley Cyrus, her, okay? Gotten very popular. You often hear her on songs by Beyonce and neighborhoods called the Bywater. And coming up on the left in the distance, that is the studio of B. Mike. I've been talking about him, right? Here's the reason why he put his studio here. If you look out the right-hand side of the bus, I want you to imagine a massive train station in the 1800s. It was a block long. When the segregation laws came to New Orleans, a man of mixed race has a little boy, a self-portrait with his crayon. See his crayon? So that's actually the back of his studio. Now what happened was him and some of his artist buddies got together and they decided to create a wall mural dedicated to the civil rights movement here in New Orleans and beyond. So look to your right. This is incredible. So we got some civil rights groups here, like you've got the balance of justice. You have the train, which is an allusion to Homer Plessy. And then if you look at the little girl holding school books, y'all heard of Ruby Bridges? Yeah. First African-American child to integrate an all-white school. That was 1960, and it was here in New Orleans. We're going to see that school on our journey today. That's it. And blue, that is his little sister, B. Mike's sister, Brandon. And then his most famous work is the front of his studio, and that is her as a little girl. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
I think you're thinking of it. The Ellis Marsalis Cultural Center. Kids can, Harry Connick Jr. and the Marsalis brothers, when they come here, they spend a lot of time volunteering here. Unfortunately, y'all, Ellis Marsalis died of COVID back in April. I'm very devastated about that. That was Harry Connick Jr.'s main mentor in his life for his music. So, horrible, horrible. All right, still a civil rights activist to this day. A little while later, I'll actually show you the neighborhood she lives in now. While taking pictures, that's awesome. Incantation. I want y'all to picture a massive drum circle, 20, 30 guys beating on drums. Those drums become very important in America. It's the best. It's so good. And the other place is legendary. It's a place called Dookie Chase's, the oldest African-American owned restaurant in the country. Leah Chase, she was the owner. She died last year at the age of 98. Yeah, I love the house next door to it too. Isn't that beautiful? Purple and greenhouse. When you see that, check that out. Here we go. Take a look at these, you guys. Aren't these incredible? Now look at that purple and green one. See how it's leaning? Welcome to building houses on swampland. That's what happens. Now, if you know your art history, Edgar Degas, the famous French sculptor, coming up here on your left is where this fountain is. He lived back. So here we go. See the red steps? Fountain number 1. And then you're going to see another fountain that's actually running. See the gazebo? And then beyond the gazebo back to there is the former detached slave quarters. This tomb, and then guys, notice the tomb to your left. See this row of tombs here? These are the kind of tombs we're going to find in most of our cemeteries, about the same size. Single family tombs passed down from generation to generation. Let's start with this one, the white family tomb. Okay, y'all see this? This is called the cemetery plate. Behind this plate is a wall, a very soft brick. I'll tell you why it's soft in just a moment. So inside, behind that wall of brick, see right here? Right this way, there's a shelf that goes 6 feet back in the tomb. So you're going to have an upper chamber and a bottom chamber in these very old tombs. All right, let's say Mr. White passes away. To prepare for his arrival, they're going to remove the plate. They're going to break through that soft brick and just expose that top shelf. Now, Mr. White might have a very elaborate funeral, but he is not brought here that day. In modern times, they do the same things they did in the old days. They might use a wooden box. They might use a very inexpensive casket. Some Catholics today still use shrouds. That's because the bodies are not embalmed. The bodies are not embalmed. They are placed on that shelf. It's bricked back up. The plate goes on, and it must remain in this tomb, untouched, for 366 days. Now that's the traditional mourning period for Catholics, right? 1 year and 1 day. But the Spanish discovered it has a practical effect. If y'all look around you, notice there's no trees. That's on purpose. You want it to get as hot as possible in these cemeteries. In the summertime, it can get up to 450 degrees in these tombs. I know it sounds crude to say this, but down here we say the body's cooked. The body's cooked. So when that 366 days are up, the church sexton comes back, he unlatches that, takes the plate off. He'll break through both of the chambers now. He'll take the bones, whatever's left of the body, put it in a bag, and the bag goes in that bottom chamber. Every one of these tombs has a bottom chamber. That's known as the caveau. The caveau can hold between 80 to 100 remains, or 150 remains, excuse me, depending on the size of your tomb. That's about how 70% of burials are actually still done today in New Orleans. Because it's very inexpensive. If you already have a tomb, I gotta pay for your funeral.
Right.
So questions about that? No one's gonna ask about the smell?
Oh, yeah.
Now it's airtight. You don't smell a thing.
Yeah.
Airtight. All right, now take a look at the larger tomb over here, guys. How to think about Ellis Island in the late 1800s. All those immigrants that came into New York, all those Italian, German, Irish immigrants, they could not afford these single-family tombs. So they began to pull their money together as a neighborhood, as communities, and build these tombs that can hold up to 1,000 remains. A lot of African American, Native American, and Hispanic American communities began to do that as well. And then they began to evolve into types of tombs for professions. Doctors, nurses, soldiers. That's one of the most beloved, y'all. That's the local priest tomb. Guess how much that holds? 2,000 remains. 2,000. Some questions about that? Okay, check these out. You see the tombs that are made of marble and have these steps?
Oh, wow.
Guess what these start at? I'm just gonna move up. I don't know if these come to this way or if these turn at. These turn. Okay. They started $1 million. $1 million. So if these are $1 million, one has to wonder, how much is this one? Check this out.
Look at on that plate. Oh my gosh, it's a big castle. Oh wow. Wow.
We have a castle, y'all.
Yeah, really?
Come on over, I'll tell you what I know about it. Okay,
Wow.
so this is the tomb of Miss Beverly Skelly Burns. Let me tell you what I know about her. She was of Scottish descent. That has something to do with the design of the stained glass. So she got stained glass, and she's got all this marble. If those are $1 million, this is easily at least 5 or 6. Got to, right? Now, I'll tell you what I know about her. She died 2 years ago. This was actually built in 2015. She died 2 years ago. She was interred here with her dog.
Wow.
She died a year later. Now she got, you want to hear some gossip or no some gossip? Okay, here we go. She got 5.
Wow.
Early for that. Okay, so guys, take a look. We have a statue of Mother Teresa, Saint Teresa. Why is she here? Well, her religious order, Little Sisters of the Poor, has a society tomb deeper in the cemetery. Guess what? That's the scale. That's how little she really was. Little but powerful, right? And that's Padre Pio, very popular in Latin America. Notice his hands, he's got bandages from stigmatas. That's what happens. Yeah. You know, families die out, money runs out, all of that. The Allard Plantation. Mr. Allard became an abolitionist, freed his slaves in the late 1700s, sold this land to a wealthy Irish Catholic philanthropist named John McDonough, who then sold it to the city, and the city hired the same architect as Central Park. City Park is 50% larger than Central Park. We have the New Orleans Museum of Art in here. We have an award-winning sculpture garden, botanical garden, children's amusement park, a train that runs all the way through this. We have golf courses and riding stables, and swan paddle boats. Now here's why it's a big deal, guys. That pond was not there before Katrina. This entire park was underwater during Katrina, and that was the most flooded section. We said, let's just use it. Across from the pond there, that's the Children's Museum. That's about a year old. The New Orleans Museum of Art on your left, one of the largest collection of Fabergé eggs of any museum in America. And then on your right, guys, this is the
And
Like that small mini large?
let's do small. And then we want to do beignets.
How many orders?
Just one.
Okay, so
That's
small
three,
hot chocolate.
right? It comes with 3, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So one small hot chocolate, one order beignets, is that bill?
Yes.
You told us the receipt.
Oh, the beignets come in a
Would you like that for your to go?
can.
For here, alright?
And then if I can have the to-go bag just in case.
Okay, that's fine. Small hot chocolate, one order beignets for here. With it to go back on the side, so it's $6.99.
Thank you.
Alright, here's your receipt, and your order coming up right over here, okay?
Okay. I want to sanitize. We want to kind of hurry up so we can use the bathroom too because I'm in the got some more beignets. How many beignets you want?
Me either. We had some yesterday, had some this morning, and now we're having more. We had some at like 8, and it's only 9:50 something.
Oh, where'd it go? All right. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this.
Another than here. Oh, sugar plastic style.
Work it out. Yeah, this one is better.
It's warmer. You have to lick it in this. Touch it.
I want you to buy.
It's hot. Ah, it's too hot. Man, I burnt. Oh, look,
out in the middle of the lake. Y'all see that bridge? That's called the Causeway Bridge. That is the longest bridge in the world at 24.8 miles. Now listen to this. China likes to claim they have the longest bridge at 26 miles. But China starts to measure their bridge from their underground tunnel. You can't do that. We have the longest bridge, people. Okay? Now y'all see that water? That's brackish. That's a mix of fresh water and seawater. So for that reason, there's a lot of sea creatures here in Lake Pontchartrain. We have sea turtles and stingrays. And this is a breeding ground for bull sharks. So you don't swim in much of Lake Pontchartrain. Now, there's some boats out there. Y'all see the boats? No commercial boating allowed, but you can bring your own boat out here. Yachts, you'll see a lot of yachts. No commercial fishing, but you can come out here and fish to your heart's desire. Notice how rough the water is today? Yesterday it was very, very calm. And look across the street, guys. 32-foot waves. Well, look at that. Not really ready for that. So beautiful. People love to come out here and get married, bring their families out here, but can also be treacherous. You might have to run from it. That's kind of new.
So we finished the tour and we were hungry. And someone had told us about the Gumbo shop. And so I was like, ooh, it's not far away. Let's grab a bite to eat. So before you can sit down, they do have you sign in. And you're going to put your first and last name and a good phone number for them to contact you to make you aware of anyone testing positive.
It's not a game, it's a rich thing.
Don't know if you can hear me with my mask on, but we just finished eating at the Gumbo shop and it was good. I had a lemonade daiquiri, very nice. Honestly, truthfully, that was my first lemonade daiquiri. I normally get strawberry. So yeah, it was very good. It was sweet and tart, so I like that combination. And then I also had the trio combination, so that was good too. Oh, that dog. Get a hot dog and fries for this one here, because when she does not eat, she becomes two kids in one. I have a 9-year-old and a 2-year-old when she does not eat. Aria, you want to tell them about your food?
Salad and the beans.
All right.
It's not a game, it's a rich thing. It's not a game, it's a rich thing.
So one of the things at Willie's Chicken Shack was the biscuits, and my daughter just did not like them because they were different. But to me, they taste more like the biscuits from uh, Church's Chicken. Like there's a glaze that they put on that biscuit, and it's not your typical glaze. It may be honey, I'm not too sure, but that's what their biscuit reminds me of.
It's not a game, it's a rich thing.
Let's thank you. You guys have a good one. Watch out, boo. You're not looking. I need you to look. Hurry up. So this was Dat Dogs, and I have to say that their fries were between the texture and taste of Burger King and Popeye's fries. Um, One of my favorite fries is the Checkers fries. Not quite there, but it's still in that texture range that
It's not a game, it's a rich thing.